What do you do when you're forced to attend a lame church? Coming up next on Pastor Bob's Coffee Break. One of our older mugs, one of my favorites still to this day. This is a building. This is the church. Church is people. And we have to start there today because that understanding is really important. But before we get started, folks, you know this is the best coffee in the world that I'm drinking. Headbangers Brew. I'm drinking our seasonal blend. It's called I Love You Very Much. How cool is that? I love you very much. Blueberries and cinnamon. If you haven't tried it, just saying. So folks, you can get that, our mugs, our t-shirts, our posters, and a subscription to our coffee. If you forget to order, it'll just happen. We love that. And please check this out right here. We are metal, we are family.com. Dear Pastor Bob, I'm a 15-year-old Christian. My parents go to a church in which I don't believe in. It's been like this since I stepped in the church. For a while we were hopping from church to church, but they found one they liked. I expressed concern with the church, but they just said it was an attack from Satan. However, the more I went, the more I feel God is telling me that this church is not a good place. It has caused big problems in my family and has kept me from going to church. Is it better to go to a church I believe is bad to not upset my parents, or to find a place that I truly believe is a place of God, but make my parents sad? What do we do with that? Well, folks, this is a difficult question. Because on the one hand, you want to find a fellowship that feeds you, that you know is biblically correct, and that you can do this. It's our theme for the month. Teach, meet, eat, pray, the four elements that really should be involved in every church, and you feel good about that. So on the one hand, you want to do that. On the other hand, they are your parents. Let's go to Ephesians chapter 6, verses 2 and 3. And it's a scripture that we've used a lot with obeying parents, and that's what it says. Honor, esteem, and value as precious your father and your mother. This is the first commandment with the promise that all may be well with you and that you may live long on the earth. You know, parents are not perfect. They don't always make the right decisions. But I think parents have a sense of responsibility too. And deep in their hearts, they want to do what is right for their family. That is, most parents do. There are some that are a little more selfish than that, but I would guess that yours have that same desire. And what they're doing is something they feel is good for you. So that's awesome. Now, we don't always agree with everything. I didn't always agree with everything that my parents said when I was growing up, and now these days I see that they were probably right most of the time. I just didn't see it. And sometimes it took me longer to see it. But, you know, what about that? What about finding the right church? And I want to just remind you once again that church is not a building, it's people. And so if you're going to a building with your parents where there are Christians there worshiping the Lord, that's great. Should you agree with everything they say? Well, I have never been in that kind of a group. I wouldn't know. I love the fact that we can agree to disagree many times, but we serve the same God and we're passionate about our faith, and that's the greatest thing. If it's a church that is kind of beating people up spiritually, then that's a different story too. But you know, this has more to do with your relationship with your parents than it does with the church. If you will create the kind of atmosphere with your parents where you can discuss this, that would be important. Or maybe something alternative. I respect the fact that you feel like this is your church and I'll attend with you. But could we find something during the week to go to also? Maybe a Bible study that we might choose together, where we can learn and we can grow together and we can compromise with something. Or can we take what we're learning in church and bring it home and discuss it as a family and look at it in the Bible? There are so many things that you can do to make the situation less explosive. And I would just suggest that you have this conversation. Have it over and over again. Not a condemning conversation, not a I hate your church and I don't want to go conversation, but how can we do this together? Because there's some things I have some concerns about, but I want to honor you. So can we do these things as well? And can we find a balance here? I find that in most of these kinds of situations, honestly, simple conversation and openness and caring with each other is the rule of the day. It's what works. When people see, okay, I'm responsible for what we're learning, I'm responsible for this biblically, or, I realize that you have another point of view, and since you've approached me with love and concern and care, I'm going to listen to you. Sometimes just because the tone of your voice is different. Seriously. So folks, that's an important thing. And church is so important, and I'm talking about this all month. Teach, meet, eat, pray. It is the foundation for what church is all about in Ephesians chapter 2, verse 42. And 242, an important foundation for what church ought to be. Folks, don't forget you are blessed, so go and be a blessing.